So I've had this bike for a little over a month now, and I think it's time for a full review. So let's get into it. So I already did a first impressions video of this bike when I first got it and kind of explained how I came into it. So I'll put a link up here at the top. Go check that one out if you haven't seen it yet. But I thought it was time to do a full-on review of this 2022 Bonneville T120. So there's a lot of really good things to talk about this bike. Let's go over some of the specs first. So this particular model was introduced in 2016, and they ran this particular bike pretty much up until I believe they just announced a new version for 2025. So almost 10 years for this particular model. What changed in 2016 was they went from air-cooled to liquid-cooled and from carbureted to fuel-injected. Those are the two biggest upgrades that they made. But of course, some other things came along with that, like the rider modes, throttle by wire, all of those things, electronics, packages, upgrades. So it's definitely a much more modern take on the classic Bonneville line. I'll put the specs up on the screen here so you can take a look at them. But generally speaking, this is a 1200cc parallel twin with a 270-degree crank, about 79 horsepower, and around 77.5 foot-pounds of torque. And you might be thinking that's not a lot, but I can guarantee you that this thing loves to get up and go. Oh, hey, some other notable aspects of this bike are the Brembo brakes, front and rear. There's twin discs in the front, so plenty of stopping power to control that 79 horse motor. As I mentioned, it is fuel injected and liquid cooled, so it runs much more efficiently. I read numbers somewhere around 60 miles a gallon. I have not reached that. Let's see where we're at. As I'm cruising right now in fourth gear, going about 45 miles an hour, I'm getting about 54. So I could see how that wouldn't be too far off. Obviously, it's going to have a lot to do with how heavy you are on the throttle. Looks like my average has been around 47 so far. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up. We have a 18-inch wheel in the front and a 17-inch wheel in the back. The stock tires that come on this bike are the Pirelli Phantom Sport Comp tires, and I've heard mixed reviews about them. Apparently the tires that come on stock are actually made in Brazil and not in Italy, but if you were to buy the Sport Comp in an aftermarket situation, they are actually Italian-made tires. So Pirelli has outsourced some of their manufacturing to Brazil, and some people say that the tires do not perform nearly as well. Now, I will say the tires do leave a little bit to be desired when it comes to the stickiness level of them. I'm not saying I've whipped the back end out, but I've definitely felt a little bit of slippage when taking some corners pretty aggressively. From a lot of the forum posts, it seems that the tires are one of the first things that people change out on these bikes. A lot of good options out there. Might be something I'll look into in the future, but I'm just going to ride it as it is for a while. I mentioned the Brembo brakes, twin discs in the front, plenty of stopping power for anything you're going to be doing on this bike. Another point of conversation that some people are not thrilled about is the suspension. I have not found it to be overly harsh or lacking in any way, but I'm not a super aggressive rider. But that is another thing that people tend to swap out fairly quickly. Being able to adjust things to your weight and riding style obviously can be a big bonus. It comes stock with preload only adjustability in the rear, and the fronts are non-adjustable, which that's plenty for me. Like I said, if I load up with some gear or have a pillion rider, I can adjust some preload and that would be fine. There's no major issue there. Moving a little further up, this is a 31.1, I believe, inch seat height. which is absolutely perfect for me. With my 29-inch inseam, I can comfortably get both feet on the ground. I wouldn't say 100% flat foot. Yeah, see, the suspension is not doing well on this road, but this road is not in great condition. Anyway, so the seat height is great for me, 31.1 inch seat height with my 29-inch inseam. I wouldn't say I'm flat foot. I can get pretty close, especially with good riding boots on, but it is definitely comfortable at stoplights. Even if I just put one foot down, I've got a lot of bend in my leg. It's very confidence-inspiring. There's nobody behind me, so I'll stop here for a second, kind of show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. So the foot peg is kind of in the way. It hits your shin, but I can get both feet pretty close to flat. Somebody's behind me now. The riding position is very relaxed. My feet are slightly forward of my hips, definitely in a kind of upright seated position. I'm sitting straight up, and there is some slight bend in my arms. I couldn't tell you what my reach is, but this is, I'm 5'7", and this is very comfortable to sit on. The seat is extremely comfortable. I've ridden, several hour days on it and not felt any discomfort. Between how comfortable the seat is and the riding position, I could be on this thing all day long. Definitely would be able to eat a lot of miles in a day. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love about this motorcycle is the traditional twin clocks. I think for a retro style bike, even though this is a 2022 model, the clocks definitely make it feel more analog, more retro, more, historic to say, I guess. Because these bikes started in the 60s, I believe. There was a short run of them in the 80s, and then they didn't really run them again until 2000, which is when that air-cooled carbureted model came out. And then, like I said before, in 2016, they moved over to the liquid-cooled and fuel-injected. But they kept the twin clocks. If you get something like the Street Twin, I believe it has a different clock on it. The new one has the same dials that the Trident has, that split LCD TFT display. And on the 2026 model that they just announced, on the T120, they kept the analog clocks, which is definitely the right move. I think there would have been a riot had they upgraded the clocks to something newer. So I'm really happy that they left all of this exactly the way it is. I've done a few things to the bike to kind of make it my own. One of the first things I do is adjustable shorty levers. I just absolutely love the way that the adjustability fits, and they're perfect size for my hand. I've got these same levers on the Trident. I put them on the Tiger. Easy swap on this bike as well. Now, when I got this bike, it did have the really low cafe style bars on it, so I swapped that out for a stock bar. The previous owner had already put these bar end mirrors on, so I kept those because I like bar end mirrors. At some point, I think I might swap them over to black, but they're fine. They function. Very clear glass, no vibration in the handlebars whatsoever, so it's very easy to see what's behind you. I've never gone straight down this road, so let's see what's there. Let's get lost, shall we? Whew. Little bumpy there. That was about half throttle. Like I said, I'm not a really aggressive rider, but being able to twist the throttle and go is a lot of fun. I was not anticipating some of those bumps. That's all right. There's a lot of good things to say about this motor. It's torquey. It sounds fantastic. These are all stock pipes. I don't see myself changing those out. I think they sound great. Just the sound of this parallel twin is incredible. So from a rideability standpoint, I've already mentioned how completely comfortable this is. Now, I've been on, some back roads today that are not in the best shape, kind of testing out the suspension, and I'm sure you can hear my voice. That was perfect timing. Whenever I hit something that kind of jostles me. Like I said, the suspension is not super soft. I wouldn't call it very firm either, but it's definitely noticeable whenever you hit something. This bike is also much more maneuverable and flickable with the stock bars. Those cafe bars did not really help. It just felt really heavy. This is not nearly as nimble as the Trident, you know, other naked bikes or sport bikes or anything like that, so don't expect that. It does like to go straight, but you can still dip it in. Like I'm hardly working at all here, and it will move for you. The transmission has a very nice click to it. It's very tactile, easy to know whenever you've switched gears. I've only found neutral maybe once or twice in the last month or so. But you definitely have to give it a little bit of oomph, but it clicks in very nice. It does have a 6-speed transmission, which is great. That is a big difference between the T100 and the T120. The T100 only has a 5-gear box, where the 120 has 6. And it's kind of like an overdrive for on the highway. I talked about that a little bit in my last video, but the basic part of it is, you know, it drops at about, I don't know, 500 RPM if you're cruising about 70. But this motor is so smooth. There's going to be hardly any vibration. I don't feel any in my feet. I don't feel any in my hands, even going highway speeds. I think I said this in my last video, but if I had to boil this whole bike down to one word, I would say smooth, because that's what it is. It's just the smoothest motor. Triumph definitely did it right on this one. I'm looking forward to getting my luggage racks on here. I kept my GB Canyon bags off of the Tiger, so I can put those onto this bike and be able to do some road trips and camping. I think this is going to be an absolutely perfect tool for that. I kind of prefer the brunt of wind straight across the chest. With windshields, I tend to get a lot of buffeting and my head moves around. It's not very comfortable. I'll do some highway stretches with this and kind of see where we go from there. But so far, like I said, it's been extremely comfortable. When I stop, I'll get some pictures of me sitting on the bike, so you can kind of see the rider triangle if you're not familiar with it. If you are looking for something that is upright but not a cruiser, then this is the ticket, which is exactly what it was I was looking for. I've done the cruiser thing. It's not super comfortable for me. It makes my lower back hurt. You know, I've got the Trident, which is slightly more forward-leaning, much more lightweight, much more nimble, easy to throw around corners. But this is, it's called a standard bike. That's what this is known as. So it's just very classic and upright. Extremely comfortable for me. I would definitely suggest going to sit on one and see what you think. So, final verdict. Would I buy one? Yep, because I did. But, like I said, if you're looking for something upright, comfortable, with plenty of torque and power to get you where you want to go, then I would definitely suggest looking at one of these bikes. I'm looking forward to doing a lot of miles on this thing, a lot of content, so definitely subscribe if you haven't already to stay up to date on whenever I post some new videos. Looking forward to seeing you on the road. Keep the shiny side up. Peace.